Hello all. It's been a little while since I posted a video on maintaining Mercedes-Benz. This is the 2008 C350 that I have. I've done a changing headlights for it, or should I say light bulbs. I've done a tail lights, a couple of others, but this in specific today is about replacing the air filters for the car, and those are housed in this plastic housing that sits atop the engine. So in order to get to it and get everything out and get the air filters out, you have to kind of disassemble a little bit of the top of the engine here to do it. Don't worry, it's not a very complicated process. Just as long as you have some tools and a how-to video like this, you can probably get through it okay. Okay, so step one, we're going to remove this front piece. You can see the seam that runs right here across the sides, and this you can actually just grab the front of, just with your fingertips. Doesn't take a lot of pressure. Just pull it up and it snaps loose, and you can lift the entire thing right off there. And we'll set that off to the side. Okay, now that exposes all of your pieces and parts here. Your oil filter is right here. So when you change your oil, that's where you unscrew it here. It's got a vertical mount, O-ring, pressurized oil filter here. So when you change your oil, that's where it is. Your oil fill is here. Some of your other electronic components, alternator, vacuum pumps, things of that nature, it's all right here, and your power steering is right down here just below this hose right here. Okay, your washer fluid is here, and your AC refill, you got a high and a low here. So in order to get this off, there's a hose that runs across the top of this. You can see how the back of this piece is all the way back here, and the hose is right here, and it's running on top of it. So we need to get that out of the way. Now in order to do that, there is a small connector right here. Now if you put your finger on top of it, you can feel that it's got ridges on it. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to take your hands and put your index finger and your thumb on here, and you just want to put them on those little ridges, and you want to push together. You want to just squeeze together and pull back, and it just snaps right off. Okay, so we can push that back over and put it right back behind the brake fluid container right there, and that gets it out of the way for the most part, so we can get that out of there. Now there are several hoses that are connected to this air filter housing that we need to take off. There's one here, which is, these are your air inlets, your airflow that goes into your air filters going into the engine. There's one on this side and there's one on this side. They come apart the exact same way. Okay, don't worry about trying to disconnect from the front here or anything else and trying to figure out how to mess with this whole thing. You can actually just grab this piece here, put your fingers on it. You want to try not to grab this area here and move this up and down or anything else, because you can over time, because it's right next to the engine. It gets hot, it gets brittle, and you can actually puncture it. So you don't want to do that. You want to just put your fingers right on the end of that and pull backwards. And as you pull back, it takes a little bit of time, but you can actually lift those straight up, and there it goes. Okay, so we got that one out of the way. That's good to go. Go ahead and get the other side over here. That one's up. There we go. That one's off. Up there. And let's see if we can get this one back. There we go. You can take that right off there. There we go. We are disconnected. Okay, so there's also a tube here. Okay, it's right, I don't know if you can see that. There's a tube sitting right here, and there's arrows that match up, so it's easy to figure out where to reconnect it. It's no big deal. You just take that and pull back on that, and there's the end of the hose right there. Just take that piece off, and that should free up your entire housing to come off. Okay, so let's push that back. Actually, that can come off. It goes right there and right there, so we'll just set that aside. Now you just want to do the same thing. It's just held in by little grommets, so you can move this thing up, and voila, that whole piece comes right off there. Okay, So we are going to go ahead and flip this over just like this. And this is where your air filters are, right here. They are housed right inside these, right there. Now, to get this off, there are little star bolts that are on here. It takes a little 5 or, I think it's a 5 or 6, maybe 8 point. I'll verify here in just a second. Let me get my wrenches here. 2 seconds. Okay. Here we go. All right, we're back. So you can take these, grab you up a couple of those, see if I can find one that I think will fit here. Sorry for the delay. Yep, that's it right there. So this is a, looks like a T25. It's right there. It's got that little star shape to it. If you guys can see that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set up our wrench so we can get this going, and we're going to back these out of here. All right, let's see if we can get this out of here, and I'll show you what the top of the screw looks like. That tightened up on me. That out of there. Okay, and there's the screw right there, and it's got that kind of little head on it. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a little star in the top of it. That's the one you want. That's a T25. It's the kind of little wrench you need for that. All right, so let me go ahead, and I'm not going to bore you with taking out the rest of these and having you watch me do that, so I'll get right back to you as soon as I disassemble all of the rest of these screws out of here. We'll get back to replacing the filters. Okay, we're back, and I've got all the screws loosened, and as you can tell, you only need to raise these up just far enough for the bolts to come out of the housing down here. Now, when you actually lift this off, you're going to lift it, and there's your old filter right there. Okay. Now, you can tell this kind of has a yellowish appearance to it. Let me give you a comparison. This is the new one going in. Okay. See the color difference? That's why you want to change it so much, but that's not the only reason. All this is just dust and dirt that's built up from sucking air off the highways as you're rolling through. The critical thing of why it's so important to have this, the air actually comes in from the front of the car here as it goes through the ducts and comes up to the front of the housing here. It actually pulls everything through here, goes on top of this, and the air actually reaching the engine is coming through this. Okay, so it's coming in this way and through this way to the engine, so the engine breathes. So anything that has come through the front of the car but is bigger than air or little tiny micro pieces of dust is going to be trapped on the other side of this filter. So let's look at what has been prevented from reaching the engine by having an air filter here. So, oh yeah, there you go. So I don't know if you can, let me back this up here so we can see what's going on. There you go. So you got all this stuff here, and if you actually pry this back, you can see all the dust and dirt. And I changed this about 6 months ago. So if it's been longer than 6 months, or it's been a couple of years, guess what? Yeah, you got it. It's time to change your air filters. So that's that. But more importantly is the fact of what didn't get through the filter. And this is what's in there. And you can see all this, but more important, there's a bug right there. He's crispy, dried, and fried, but he didn't get into the engine. Looks like a big old beetle of some sort, but he's been in there a little while. All that got sucked into the engine through the air, and you got all that. Better yet, let's take a look at exactly what we're dealing with here. Let me find a contrast background here that we can use. This looks good. So we're actually going to lay this piece of paper down here. I'm going to show you everything in here that the filter stopped. This is after just 6 months. And there's still debris in here I've got to clean out and whatnot, but that's all the stuff that didn't get into the engine, including that big ass bug there. There's another one. There's a fly. There's a daddy long legs. There's all this stuff in there, and all that was going to go inside my engine if I didn't have these air filters in there. So that's why it's always important to do that. The other side, unfortunately, I dropped it on the floor, but it was just as bad. It had about this much stuff in it. So lesson for you kids: change your air filters and change them about twice a year. And this is why, because that's 6 months worth of driving down the roads here in California. I'm sure in dustier areas where you got dirt roads or other things, you can probably surmise that it's probably 3 months or so before you get that kind of buildup. So we're going to go ahead, and I need to clean these out. So I'm going to wash these out real quick, make sure they're clean, dry them up, and then we'll go through the process of putting the new filter in and putting it all back together. Okay? Be right back with you. Okay, I cleaned out the air filter housings, everything else, and I was about to put everything back together, and then it dawned on me it would probably be a good time to go over some housekeeping, since we have the top of the engine off here. So inside here you've got all of your ignition plugs here, so you can see these are not your typical like wires onto a spark plug. It's all electrical generated. So while I'm in here, I like to go over and make sure that I clean up all of the dust, dirt, anything else that might be on top of the engine. Kind of clean it off and keep everything kind of dirt free as much as possible. I mean, a lot of the road, the wind from the road and that sort of thing will blow most of the other stuff off. But, you know, as long as you got the top of the engine off here, there's no reason you can't go ahead and wipe some of this dirt off and make sure the top of the engine is clean. Check your hoses, things of that nature. See if they're all doing okay here. There's little small hoses here, vacuum hoses, that sort of thing that you can look at and make sure that they're still operating well. Everything looks good, no cracks. If there are, then by all means just take the hose off, which I'm sure there's a video for that somewhere on YouTube, or in a maintenance manual. My son, who does a lot of postings, he's a Massey 706 on YouTube. He does a lot of, he's done some on this car. He's done an oil change on this car, if you want to check that out. Teaching you how to change oil for this car. It's again, that's Massey 706. He did that one, but he also goes over cleaning the MAF sensor back here, or the mass airflow, some of the other stuff, but he can also, he goes over a lot of the same principles on his Ford Ranger and stuff, and the Lincoln car that he has. He goes over a lot of that stuff too. So, but we cleaned off the top of the engine here, so we're ready to go ahead and put our air filter back together. So in order to do this, you're going to have your housings back. Okay, so this side is going to be over here on this side of the engine. So this is not the typical way you would do it, but for the purposes of a lesson in replacing the air filters, I figure this will do just fine doing this. So air's coming in, so you want the orange. There's usually a little orange or yellow depending on the type. This is a Fram that I purchased off of Rock Auto, so you can pop that in there. And as a matter of fact, I might even be able to plug as much as 2 seconds. Hold on. This is a C350 Mercedes 2008 model, so it's I'm not sure, but I would imagine that several years worth of them are all going to be the same size filter. But this is off rockauto.com, and it is part number FRMCA8768, and they come in one per, so you got to order 2 of them, 1 for each side. So I got these off Rock Auto. So it just goes right back in. It's all nice and clean. It's ready to go back into the housing, and we'll go ahead and do the other one here. So we've got that one as well. And there's the actual filter. And these are just the ones that Rock Auto had. They've also got some ones made in Germany that you can buy. For me, since I change them so often, I'm not worried about the brand so much. I'm more worried about a good tight fit, a good air filter, and making sure that it just helps my engine avoid having bugs and that whole palm full of dirt going into the engine, which will definitely not sit well and probably do really bad things there to your engine. So, okay, so we've got those ready to go. So we'll go ahead and take our piece here. And we'll set this back up on top of the engine so we can go ahead and get this ready to go. This one goes over on that side. And you can tell which way it goes because the entrance, or the air entrance, is going to be to the outside of, that's how you can tell whether or not to put them on this side or that side, is this side is going to have that piece here. So we're just going to snap that into place. Make sure it's in there nice and tight. And we'll go ahead and slide that right down there. There, and we got a nice tight fit. There we go. Now we're just going to tighten all this up, and we'll be ready to put it back on. Be right back with you. Okay, so just tightening down the last piece here, and you don't have to tighten these down super tight. Just make sure that it gets down tight and give it a little snug. You should be okay. So now we have our completed assembly back together right there, and we're going to go ahead and turn this back over since we have our new air filters, and you just match up. You've got this piece here right on top of the engine. Okay, let me see if I can get you a better look at that. Okay, see that little piece there? That goes right into that space, so it's pretty easy just to line it straight up, no problems. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just center that piece right over that hole there and drop it right into place. It'll snap right down on there. Okay, and again, I like to go ahead. You can use any kind of basic cleaning. I'm just using some window cleaner here. Make sure I clean up, and since I have everything off, clean this up a little bit before we finalize putting it together. Okay, wiping that down, all that. All right, so that back piece is on. Now we can go ahead and take your hose here. And you don't have to squeeze this to get it back in. You had to squeeze it to get it off, but just hold it from the other side here, and just push, and it just snaps right back on there. There you go. So that's back in place. Now we'll go ahead and place this piece right back on there. Push that in and sink that right back together there. Let me make sure that's in there good. Let's see if I can get that up on there. Sometimes it takes a little work to do it. There it goes. Okay. That piece is back on there. Get this other one installed. Be helpful if I had it on the right way, wouldn't it? Alright, so that's in there. I'm going to go ahead and drop that right back down on there. And again, sometimes you gotta work it a little bit, get it on there. See if I can enable that little sucker up on there. Come on. It's not wanting to snap into the bottom here. Okay, there we go. Now it's in. All right, now last piece is your hose here. That goes, if it comes off, it goes right back on there and right back. Line up the arrows, you'll see them on top of this. You can see it right there. There's the arrows. There's one there, one there. And that connects onto here. So you can actually just remove the entire thing off there. So just snap that back on there. Pop that right back in. There you go, all the way in. Good to go. All right. So we got all that connected. Got new air filters in it. Everything's cleaned up. All hoses put back together. Yep. Now just take the front cover, place this down, and it doesn't take a lot of pressure. Okay. I'm just going to place my finger, 2 fingers, and just push. Goes right back in there in the front. That's it. Doesn't take a lot of force. It's just a aesthetic cover. All right. Then again, we'll hit the front with a little cleaning fluid. Keep the muck and buildup off of it so it stays nice. And as long as you're going to maintain your car, right? And that, my friends, is how you replace your air filters for this car. And again, I'm not promoting any type of filter. I'm not promoting a sales site or anything else. That's just the ones I happen to use. There's other sites out there. You can use any number of search engines on the internet and just look for that part number. If you rewind a little bit, you'll find the part number for the filter I use. But there's MAN filters, there's MANN MAN filters, there's Fram, there's all kinds of other makers out there that you can find it. Just find the one you want. And like I said, it's not really a big deal. Some people are loyal to the product, some people may not be, but me, I change my air filter so often that it really doesn't matter which type I get, because it's going to do the job until 6 months later, and I clean it out for obvious reasons, for all the stuff you saw me pour out of my housing out of there, the bugs and dirt and everything else. That's just going to build up. Plus, when you get this much dirt and debris in your filters, it reduces the airflow going through these filters and getting into the engine. So the easier you're passing air through, the easier it is to breathe. It's just like you or me. If you have any kind of respiratory distress or anything else, or maybe you just ran too fast and you're trying to catch your breath, it's the same thing. If your car can't breathe, it's not going to run at good performance. It's going to drop your gas mileage. It's going to do all that stuff. Changing oil in these, it's recommended by the manufacturer to use, it's got it here on the front of the engine. I don't know if you can probably see that. They say to use the Mobil 1. You can also get the actual OEM motor oil from the Mercedes dealership. It comes in a gray carton. It's much more expensive, but for general purposes, they tell you to use a mobile synthetic, and I try to follow that as much as possible. That's the one I use. It's the Mobile One European formula. I run the 040 because I'm here in California. It's warm all the time for the most part, so I don't really need a thick oil. The thinner the better. And I use Arch oil for every oil change. And again, I'm not promoting Arch oil. I just like it and use it. You can go out to Massey 706, my son's channel, and see that product and what it does and why. But basically, when I add 10 ounces of this stuff, this is 16 fluid ounce, when I add 10 ounces of this stuff into my oil and change my oil as opposed to just a regular oil change, it drops the engine temperature by about 2 notches. It runs smoother. It's made with a boron, which is super slick, and it allows everything to move. It reduces friction in the engine, thus your engine runs cooler. It also runs more efficient, and it stops the wear and tear on your engine so fast. I was not a believer, but it has absolutely lowered the friction in my engine, and you do notice a significant temperature drop. And I've been running this stuff in my car since around 2011, so about the last 6 years. My car now has 111,000 miles on it, and it purrs like a kitten. I've never had to take it in for any kind of major work or anything else. Additionally, if you want, you can I use this for every fill up. It's the Arch Oil Fuel Modification Complex, and it only uses 5 milliliters for every tank full. So this thing I've had for about 3 years, and that's how much I've gone through in 3 years. So when you fill it up, you're only filling up to that first hash mark, that 5, and you put that in with an entire tank of gas, and it will clean out and lubricate all of your injectors. It will clean out your fuel systems, your fuel line. It will lubricate and keep your fuel pump running clean, your fuel filter, everything else. So I use the Arch Oil products on this car, and I have been extremely happy with the results. So that is changing your air filters, basic maintenance for getting the top of your engine off, and a little house cleaning. Some how-to videos from Massey 706 on his page, and everything you want to know about Arch Oil to keep your Mercedes-Benz running for as long as possible. They're expensive cars. You might as well spend a little bit of money and do some oil changes. It says 10,000 miles. I change mine about every 7,000 to 8,000 miles. I change my Mobile One synthetic and put Arch Oil in it, and it's running fantastic. So that's it. You got any other questions? Let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on the flip side the next time I do some maintenance. If you have any questions on anything maintaining the car, send me a message and I will try to help you out. Take care. Happy driving.